Hey everybody, welcome to episode 9 of Film Club. It is I, Brad, and with me, as always, co-host Jon-Erik. How's it going, man?
We're back.
Jesus Christ. Right out of the gate. I thought you were gonna go with the Miss Me line because of course part 9 we're talking
Oh
about
yeah.
episode 9, we're talking about New Nightmare. Oh shit.
Yes, sir.
When he busts out of that closet. They should have had that. Is that a reference to part 2? We'll talk about it.
Maybe. Yeah.
He's got Probe. Jesse Walsh had Probe in the board game in the closet, and Freddy coming out saying "Miss me," and he's wearing leather pants now. He's darker. He's redesigned. He's a little scarier. Maybe some people disagree, but we'll talk about it. Hope everyone's been well out there in internet land. But yeah, we're back, baby. Let's talk about some Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which I guess we'll just get your thoughts to start off. How do you feel about this movie in general after rewatching it?
Uh, I love it. It's after it's been a while since we recorded, but we were going through the series. It was just like, yeah, I grew to appreciate a lot of them, but for the most part, it's just like, yeah, the Dream Warriors, the original, like those are hallowed ground, and then the rest of them are just kind of like, or
Yeah,
bad. And I know we talked about that in the last the Freddy's Dead, but like I hate Freddy's Dead. And for Wes to come back and save the franchise with this, I love it. I couldn't wait, or yeah, couldn't wait to talk about it, and I'm glad we're doing this again.
yeah. Thanks for being here, man. It's. I'm excited to talk about it too. It's really cool that it happened on like the 10th anniversary, because obviously the original came out in '84. This one release date was October 14th, 1994. So kind of the 10-year anniversary of the original. Um, And yeah, it has pays a lot of homage, obviously, to the series and to the original, especially. Given the main players in this one, we have obviously Wes Craven coming back to write and direct. You have most of the original players coming back. You have Heather Langenkamp, John Saxon,
Who's
Rob.
great in this? I think
Yeah,
she's so good in this.
I'd argue I think she's like her best in the whole series in this one. Well, especially compared to like Dream Warriors. I felt her character was a little stiff. I don't know if it's because she just didn't have
I
enough
no,
to
I
work
agree.
with,
I agree.
but
Yep. I do agree. Like you can argue that her acting is kind of, yeah, in the other ones, like it's just that, but she's so good here.
yeah, she is phenomenal in this movie.
Yeah.
Solidifies her as like the freaking one of the OG final girls, because this is like what a performance from her. John Saxon as well coming back. And I liked him in this movie too. You mean I'm a John Saxon fan, and obviously I loved him in
Hmm.
the first and the third movie. But we'll get to obviously a word that's going to be overused every time you hear the word meta in this conversation. You have to take a shot or whatever. You be dead by the end of it from alcohol poisoning if you were out there in internet land. But meta is going to be overused in this conversation, I'm sure. But him almost playing like a meta version, like a father to Heather in this movie as well, because he's kind of a mentor figure to her throughout the film when she needs help, you know?
Yep.
Um, yeah, so I guess we can kind of jump into it. Um, Music is by a different person this time. It's J. Peter Robinson. They occasionally do bring back the score from the OG, the classic piano nightmare music, which is hits just at the right times, you know, when they're
Really does.
when near the climax of the film, when she has to make the choice to go and face Freddy one final time and become Nancy again. The music hits, and you're just like, "Ooh, I got the goosebumps." And
Yep.
even at the beginning of the movie, so
Oh, the opening is so good.
yeah,
It's such a cool opening.
it's a recreation. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the history of the movie first, and then we can break down what happens and kind of go through our thoughts, and maybe in that order. Um, didn't do so well at the box office. Um, budget of 8 million.
Interesting. See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the budget was 8 million. It only grossed 18, which obviously, like the previous Nightmares, were making like in the
Or
30s and were
smashes, yeah.
smash hits. But I mean, I don't think that has to do as much with the quality of this movie as maybe the zeitgeist or just what was going on at the time. Pulp Fiction. A lot of people blame it on Pulp Fiction, which I guess you could say that was kind of culturally a huge thing at the time, right? Pulp Fiction was huge. Not to say that people
Mhm.
shouldn't have still went to see this movie, because I think when Wes talked about this in interviews, behind the scenes and all these things, he said that he made this movie for the fans of the original, who would be 10 years older, right? So I guess if you're
And
going
it
to,
shows.
yeah, definitely, it's definitely a more mature movie,
Mhm.
and I guess maybe that to not to as a critique, but for some people who would say if it doesn't hit just right for them, they'll say the movie's not scary, or they'll say it's dumb. Some people do not like this movie, and maybe there's not enough Freddy in it for some people because it's not like a body count. It's not like Dream Master. Nobody's really. I mean, people do die in the opening scene, but there's not as many bodies throughout the film. Do you know what I mean? I think it's got the lowest body count in
Oh,
the whole
that's
series,
true.
maybe except for part five. I think part five only has like her friends die. This movie, I think
Mhm.
they had to add some more because it's just like it's not enough. But it's a more mature Nightmare film, right? Roger Ebert gave it
Absolutely.
3 out of 4 stars. Fun facts. But Siskel didn't. He didn't like it. I thought that was interesting. I don't think he liked a lot of horror movies. So
Siskel was it's funny because growing up, getting a little off topic here and just going on to Siskel and Ebert, but I grew up watching that show, and growing up, I used to always think that I agreed with with Gene Siskel, and then most of the episodes, if you look up any review of theirs, are on YouTube. And now, whenever I go back and watch an old episode to see what they thought of it, I usually agree with Roger Ebert, and Gene Siskel is just, yeah, no, he's terrible.
this movie doesn't have a
R.I.P.
single. Yeah, he rips
He
this
calls
movie.
them pictures, which he calls them pictures, and I just,
This
Gene
picture
Siskel
just
could be
didn't
so,
provoke any thoughts in my brain.
yeah,
I think that's what he says about this movie to Ebert. It's fucking hilarious, dude.
oh, yeah,
It just didn't provoke any thoughts in my brain, so I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, this is the most meta slasher of all time. Like, for those of you who haven't seen it, I guess we should probably get this out of the air before we continue. This movie does not take place in the canonical world of the other Nightmare on Elm Street films. In Wes Craven's New Nightmare, the whole movie is quote unquote in our world. It's a movie about people who make the movies. So Robert Englund is not playing Freddy Krueger. Robert Englund is playing Robert Englund playing Freddy Krueger.
he's so good too.
And
So
he's
good in this.
creepy, and he's also good. It's great to see him again. Oh, of course, we talked about this with the other films, but it's great to see him out of the makeup. And it was nice to see
Out of the
him.
makeup and
It was nice to see the juxtaposition between him as um hammy Freddy, especially after Freddy's dead. You come right off of that, and then you put that up against the darker, redesigned Freddy that Wes had a vision for in this movie to redesign Freddy. We'll get to that as well. We'll get to the look. But the scene where he's I think it's my favorite scene in the whole movie, maybe, is when he's in the studio with Sam Rubin and they're doing the interview with Heather. And it's
right.
it's just kind of like one of those talk shows he's a real talk show host. I think he's also passed on now. R.I.P. Sam Rubin. He was a journalist for KTLA. And he's kind of just probing Heather Langenkamp about her son and if the movies, would she let her son watch the movie. So this is clearly something that's
Right,
still
yeah.
in Wes's mind, right? He's like, would you let Robert Englund hang out with your son? I was like, what a weird. This is a little pointed, right? You know where Wes is going with this, but in like the moment of the movie, you see on Heather's face, she's just like, "What the like? Who asked this question?" Yeah, just let some random coworker hang out with my 6-year-old son, who also happens
Infant
to.
son, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny though because you see that hilarious version of Freddy where they surprise her, and then you also see what he is later. But in the crowd, you have the fans chanting "Freddy, Freddy, Freddy," and
Oh, I
there's
love that whole scene.
kids dress up, and the nice reference they reference. I tried to look into it, but I'm pretty sure there's references to almost every movie, every other Nightmare movie in this film, apart from like maybe five. But he says, "You're all my children now," which is a line from part two. Remember at the pool when he puts his arms out,
Right, right.
he says that when the
That's
spotlight's on him. That's the last line you hear when they're in the talk show with Sam Rubin. And I thought, man, this is one of the greatest scenes because Wes is like orchestrating something. He's going to take you on this ride at this point. I remember watching the movie for the first time, and I'm like, I was young as a kid, and this scene, I was like,
mhm.
where are they going with this? And maybe that's something else we should talk about before we start diving into the the story and all that stuff. Is that the marketing of this movie was kind of weird too, because obviously the last film was marketed as Freddy's dead, this is it. They did the public, uh what would you call it, not a burial, but like they did the whole funeral thing for Freddy
Oh,
Krueger
in
in Los
California,
Angeles. Yeah.
yes.
and
Yeah.
and that was like met with some backlash, but they it was a publicity stunt. And now this new movie is the I don't know if you've seen the trailers for it, but it's like kind of confusing. It's like the narrator's talking a movie that was so scary, and it almost doesn't explain what this movie is, but it's like the movies are coming to life. And I could see why maybe the movie didn't do so well upon release, because it's kind of a tough sell just upon like a 30
Mhm.
second 45-second trailer or something to that effect, to
That's interesting because yeah, I don't I haven't seen the trailer, but I do remember the poster when it came out on VHS scaring the shit out of me.
which one was that?
Not the like I have seen the poster now of it's just the black with his eyes, which is super cool too. But
Yeah.
I do remember when it came out, the red. I think
Yes,
it's
yeah, yeah. There's some
you know
poster
which one I
art
mean.
for it, and it kind of shows like the boiler that gets burned in at the ending, and it's kind of his claw. You see the new claw, and it's his face. Is that the one?
It's yeah, yes, the new claw, and then there's the picture of Heather and her son.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's the one I thought of as well. I think it's the one that loads up when you load in the collector's edition DVD or
He
Blu-ray.
basically yes, yes, I think it is that.
Fan
Yeah, he
mentioned.
basically,
Mhm.
I think I would have when I was a kid already been having because Red Skull from the shitty Captain America, the canon Captain America movie, horrible movie, but Red Skull, the design of Red Skull in that movie is freaking amazing and terrifying. And I think yeah, when I was a kid, I saw the poster for New Nightmare and was like, shit, that scares the shit out. That scares the living daylights out of me.
Yeah, Freddy was.
That's going into the design of him too, but yeah, the poster always I've always remembered the poster from Jumbo Video, hanging outside of Jumbo Video.
Old Jumbo. Man, yeah, it was a the design of him was really good in this one. I don't know, people are mixed on it. I thought they did a good job. Maybe this is a good time to get to it because we're just going to talk about the story and other, kind of
Mhm.
get through the movie and our thoughts in that together. But Freddy's designed this movie, or the entity, whatever you want to call him, because it's not really Freddy, right? In case you guys haven't seen the movie before, um, Heather's playing Heather. John Saxon is John Saxon. Robert Englund is playing Freddy Krueger, but there's another entity that's taking over because the movies have stopped being made now, and the genie's out of the bottle, as Wes Craven pretty much puts it in his big scene. Even Wes Craven gets to play himself in this movie, which is I thought he did a pretty good job
Very.
for a guy who's
I
not
thought
an
he did
actor.
too. I thought it was really yeah.
He's not one of those guys who's like, okay, I wrote and directed it, and he's thinking of, he's putting his palms together, like slowly rubbing them, like, how can I find a role for myself? He's not that type of guy. So the fact that he
Going
put
back to
himself,
Pulp Fiction, Tarantino as Jimmy
I was
is
gonna say,
just so
going back
oh
to
man,
most Tarantino movies where he shows up somewhere.
that's so true. But Jimmy is like the ultimate. Like that movie is amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite movies of all time. But
Of course.
rewatching it, it's just like, oh my god, you should have cast someone else in this role. Like
He had to get
You can
himself
just
in there.
tell he's so pumped to be in his own movie, and he's so pumped to be like, Tarantino's so up his own ass, it's not even funny, he always has been, and again, I love him, but that's a
Oh,
whole other discussion.
oh yeah. What does he say? Like the last shot of freaking Inglorious Bastards. I think it's just my masterpiece. What Brad Pitt says, and then he.
Which I ki I agree with them there because I think that is one of his best films, but, like, oh my god,
But to
yeah,
say it
just
about your
recently
own movie.
just recently, he said that 2019 was the last year of cinema, and it's like, Quentin, wasn't that the year your last movie came out?"
He's gonna change that when the next one
Just some of
comes
the
out.
shit he says.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the shit he says, I do agree with him. We're getting off topic here, sorry, but I do agree with him with the Toy Story 4. He said, "Yeah, leave it at 3," and he's never gonna watch part 4, and I'm like, "Okay, he's right there," but he says so much shit that's just wild, and going back to Wes Craven in New Nightmare, he's not a big part of the movie,
Yeah.
and his role is obviously integral to the whole setup of the movie, so it doesn't seem like, uh a wink, wink, nod, nod, like I'm Wes Craven, I'm in my own movie. It is actual very integral to the plot. And then going back again to Tarantino, it's like, Jimmy, yeah, you shouldn't have been in that movie, just Jimmy.
It's
But
so
Wes
true.
Craven, going back to the movie, getting back on topic, Wes Craven as Wes Craven is integral to the movie,
Yeah, it was part of the story, right?
important to the movie,
Yeah.
and part of the story. And thought he did a really good job.
I thought they all did, people who weren't the actors.
Hmm.
Um the bit
Robert Shea.
Robert Shea, yeah, his short scene. I mean, yeah, because you get to see in those scenes Robert Shea, the big head honcho, right? Of
Hmm.
New Line, at least at the time. He's in the scene and he's talking and he's trying to get Heather to come back to play Nancy again. And then the phone rings and you see that these scary phone calls, which we'll get to in a minute, have been happening ever since Heather asked him again. So ever since Wes has been working on this script, have you ever had any strange phone calls? And then the phone rings and you could see the kind of the unease in Robert Shea's eyes. He's like, "Oh Jesus, she's got a point. There's something
Oh, that
here."
scene's great.
That's a
Yeah.
great scene as well. So let's get to the
Mhm.
story in a moment. Let's talk about the design of Freddy. What did you think? Are you a fan of the new look in this movie? The new makeup,
I am.
the new
I think,
gloves,
yeah, I think it's, the trench coat.
the trench coat is actually I dig the trench coat on him. It makes him
Me
look
too.
bigger.
I thought, like, that it does, and I think that whole sequence is terrifying.
Yeah, when he's
The sequence with the babysitter and yeah.
oh my goodness, yeah. I'm gonna get to that scene because there's a lot of things that happen in this movie that, like I said, are reimaginings or tip of the hats from previous films. Um,
Mhm.
so we'll get to those. I thought the glove is cool because it's like bio organic. It's kind of like part of him now, fused to the bone. It looks so cool
Which
in
is
the scenes you
awesome,
get to
yeah.
see it. The Yeah, the trench coat's dark, and his makeup now is not as intricate as before, I'd say, but it's everything is more sleek and simplistic, except for the glove, which is like bioorganic, which I think is a really cool way to take it instead of the glove because
Yep.
he's got even the extra blade now on his thumb, which
Which is sick.
which is just one extra blade, but man, it's really
Yeah.
connecting with Wes's original idea of what would scare somebody, and he was thinking of caveman times. And he said, "Oh, it'd be a bear or something like a big cat or something like that, right? Something with claws." And now Freddy's finally got his fifth claw. So thank you, Wes. Thank you, Wes, for this. I like the look of the new Freddy in this movie, and he's actually scary again, which is one of my biggest one of my biggest pros for this movie is even as a kid, by the time I saw this for the first time, I was starting to, like I said, I like Freddy's Dead, but as like a popcorn guilty treat, stupid
Mhm.
stupid thing to watch. But this movie, even though I was really well acquainted with Freddy at that point and seeing this movie for the first time, the sequence when he comes out of the bed like he did in the original, but this time you have the new kind of haunting music by J. Peter Robinson, and it's like kind of like orchestral, and he's lurking through that house when he emerges at the end of the film to
Oh
go
yeah.
get the kid. The music is freaking terrifying, dude. And you see the tip of the
Yes.
hat to the well, Nosferatu, right? He's got you see the Robert Englund clearly
The
the
shadow.
shadow on the wall with the glove, and then man, it
Yeah.
was such a good scene, and you could just that's one of my favorite, another one of my favorite scenes, and honestly one of my favorite scenes in the whole series. Not just this movie, but man, he is so creepy. When I was a kid, that was the shit I would fear when I go to bed at night. When I'd watch this in the day, I'd be like, "Oh man, that was a lot of fun." But then when your brain starts to wander in the middle of the night and you hear a creak in your
Yeah.
house and you go, "Oh God, is Freddy lurking around like he was in that big trench coat? Because I'm just gonna shit my pants." And
Yeah.
he was, yeah, he's scary in this movie, and you don't see him a lot, which is I guess, another people's criticism.
But see, like that's like saying like Jaws. We need more shark in Jaws, like the studio heads. It's like the less is more, and like not having him be in this movie like he is. He's all through Freddy's Dead and Five, and not having him be the star of the movie is just makes it so much better.
I well said, sir, because like, yeah, they actually have some meat on the bones for the story in this one. They don't need Freddy in every other scene to
Yeah.
be wisecracking or killing somebody who's inconsequential. We care about all the
Yeah.
people in this film, and
Exactly.
there's actually some meat on the bones. So, it being like a
Focusing on Heather and
yeah, her family and all.
relationship with her son and her husband, and yeah, it just it, it's so good.
Yeah, and it's like a nice view on like the industry itself, right? Because these are people who've made these movies, been at least working on them to some extent for the last 10 years, most of the people in this project.
Right.
So you know that some of the stuff that's going on in this film about, is it, a big champion of, is it having an effect on society or not? Was Wes Craven in so of talking about like, does do violence in movies make people violent and all this thing, right? And he was a big advocate for
Right.
having
Yeah.
violence in movies, but because it's part of society and history and all these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it being a reflection is important, but also it being somewhat tasteful as well. Obviously,
Exactly.
there's a fine line between, you know, art and industry, where the sense of which side's going to win out. And obviously, it is a business, and anyone who thinks otherwise is a fool, right? He also said that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought this movie was really creative for 1994, and I think A New Nightmare uh, is like underappreciated in the sense of a meta slasher, because this movie precedes Scream by 2 years, right? I think the original Scream was
And I
96.
just I like that's what I just don't get about like I'm glad you brought that up because like I was gonna bring up how much this is like Scream
It's just not
and
everybody
how meta
winking at
it
the
is.
camera like Scream does as much,
And
right?
that's what I like. I don't get me wrong. I do like Scream, but I've have my problems with Scream, and I think this is better than Scream.
Yeah, Matthew Lillard's coming back for 7. Did you see that?
Did see that. And it just I don't I've liked the requels. I have liked them, and but this is coming from someone who's not a big Scream fan, so I don't like the sequels. I'm not a big fan of 2, Scream 2. I hated Scream 3. Scream 4 I enjoyed a lot. But and the original I've even had, like, I think it is a great movie, but I just it's not it's some there are people that just they love them, and they love the original Scream, and I think it's a really good movie, but it's not my favorite, and I think New Nightmare is better than Scream because it predates Scream and the meta-ness, and
Yeah,
it's a
very
better
true.
movie.
Very true.
I said it. Fight me. Fight me.
Fight me, comment section. Do it. I mean, everybody has. I would kind of agree with you. I mean, obviously, the Scream movies are huge, but like, this is Wes also directed Scream, so it's like I know. What is it? Kevin
It's
Williamson
yeah.
was the writer of that, right? But and now I think he's directing the new ones. He's directing the next one anyway. And I mean,
It's
that
just funny
series.
because
Oh, go on.
this summer sorry, this summer, I Know What You Did Last Summer, they're doing a reboot of that.
It's all reboots or requels or legacy
which was also
sequels.
a Kevin Williamson script. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got the script mind for it. Let's see if he can direct it. I don't know if I've seen his. Did he direct any of the other ones? Now I'm
I don't think so.
going down the rabbit hole of other
I
movies here.
Yeah, we're getting off topic, but that's what we do on here on Film Club.
That's who we are.
And going back, like we're getting off topic, but I liked the Scream in New York. I like that they brought it to New York, just like they have done with Jason and Freddy. Well, they didn't really put Freddy in a different city or anything, but
Oh yeah,
Leprechaun in space.
they always try to take it into a new location, and that somehow spices
Yeah,
it up,
and
right?
I thought that was cool. I thought that was cool what they did with it. I mean, don't get me wrong. The last Scream was very flawed too. I thought the killer was there. That's a whole other. We should do the Scream series. Even though I might be shitting on a lot of them, but
Hey, that's all right. You might have some people come out of the woodwork and want to fight you in the comments, but I mean, everyone's entitled to an
yeah,
opinion, right? Some
I'll
people are
start
gonna
getting
like them.
phone calls.
Oh, how long have you been getting
You
these phone
don't
calls?
you don't like Scream movies?
And you know the phone calls in New Nightmare are supposed to be a stand-in for the fans, right? Because Wes,
So there you go. Yeah.
the fans, it's a response to the critics because the movies have stopped being made, and apparently, people have had stalkers and these type of things, and Heather apparently had one in real life at the time, so this was apparently cutting
Oh,
pretty
I didn't
close
know
to the
that.
bone. And Wes, um, well, in the movie, Heather has her husband is a special effects artist, and that is in fact what her husband does in real life as well. It's not played by her
Oh,
husband
I
in the
also didn't
movie,
know that.
um, but it's kind of interesting. He kept a lot of things as close, and I'm sure he probably would have used her real husband if he wanted to. Maybe not. I don't know, but
Mhm.
given how
What
many.
is the guy? What is the name of the guy that played him? Her husband in the movie.
Oh God, I remember what's his
I'm
husband's
gonna
name.
look it up.
His name in the movie's Chase, but I don't remember.
David Newsom.
Yeah, he was good. I liked him in it.
He was very good. What about what?
A small
Can't
role,
even
but
remember again. Get
he's the special effects guy who's working on the new glove that he's secretly keeping behind his wife's back. And this is because Wes Craven's writing a new movie. And the movie he's writing is the movie, in fact, that we're watching at the moment we figure. It kind of hurts your brain when you start to try and make sense of this film, because it's like it makes sense in its own weird way. But
Mhm.
because like everything's so much about like the mania of Freddy over the last 10 years. Um, and yeah, Heather's husband actually worked with Wes, but I think it's just he didn't want to play himself. So that's kind of crazy. But I think the actor they got for him, yeah, David Newsom, he was really good in it. I liked.
I
I,
feel like that would have been cool, but I get where he's coming from, especially if he's not an actor. Like I'm kind of glad that he didn't want to do it because yeah,
taking it, you're giving a.
David Newsom is good. I thought I knew him from something else, but I'm looking at his filmography now, and I guess I just know him from. Oh, okay, he was in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, so maybe that's where I also recognize him from. But
Yeah. Originally, there was going to be.
yeah, I thought David Newsom did a very good job. So
Yeah, he was
I'm
good.
glad that even though that would have been cool, I'm glad her real husband didn't play himself because he's obviously not an actor, and I feel like that would like it's an important part. It's a bigger part that would have probably taken away from it.
Yeah, and if you don't want to do it in the first place and you're not an actor, you're
Yeah.
probably not going to do exceptionally well if you have multiple scenes that require
Mhm.
emotions and all these things. Um, yeah, so let's maybe get into the movie a little bit. So the opening scene, we actually do meet Chase, played by David Newsom. That's Heather's husband, and we open within a scene, pretty much, right? Because it's the fictionalized version of Freddy cutting off his hand and putting on this biomechanical glove, and not just the seller like in the original '84 version, right, where he's just building the glove. the glove's already built here, but now he's putting it onto his body, so it's upping the
Right.
antes. But I really liked the gothic Babylonian underground. I don't know if it's supposed to be hell. It's not like superbly defined, I would say. It's kind of like his
Hmm.
underworld, pretty much, where this demon entity is taking the guise of Freddy. This is his lair type of thing, which I guess is very in line with the original Nightmare, right? Because even Freddy back then was down in the boiler room. So this is this entity residing in a type of hell or thing, and it's coming from there. Works well with the lore of the film's already set up. So kudos to them. And then
Super cool. Yeah.
and then this robot robotic controlled arm that the special effects guys are using. And by the way, one of the special effects guys is played by Matt Winston, who's the son of Stan Winston. He plays Chuck, the effects
Oh
guy,
no, cool.
who dies in that opening scene. Um, Chuck and Terry, the two guys, the casualties, right? The special effects guys get it first. Later in the movies, they talk about Chuck and Terry, and then what's the husband say? Oh, forget about those clowns, Heather. Is anyone called or not? So those clowns, R.I.P. That's when he cemented he was going to die in the film. The only asshole-ish comment. He didn't know they were dead, right? But it's kind of funny. I always get a chuckle to
Yeah,
that line when you rewatch the film. Forget
that
about
is
those
awesome.
clowns, bro. She watched them die in her dream last night, and now they're not at work. Maybe let's forget about those clowns, Heather. Oh God, I just but yeah, I love the recreation of the new glove in the opening scene, and you see a lot of
So cool.
allusions to the original. Um, I don't know if it's trying to say anything with the comment or in the commentary that with the special effects team being the first to die, the ones who made the glove, perhaps. I don't know. Um, but yeah, after that, we kind of are put into the real world where Heather wakes up and she's with her husband and her son, played Dylan, who's played by Miko Hughes. Um, he,
Boys have penises, girls have vaginas. Thanks for the tip.
that was the other. What was that? The
And
Schwarzenegger film.
Dylan,
Dylan.
Dylan.
Oh,
Wait, I guess. I'm sorry.
which movie is that from? It's a Schwarzenegger film, right?
Kindergarten Cop
Yeah,
and Predator.
Miko Hughes is
Dylan
in.
and
Yeah, it's a Dylan out of context. It's a it's a meta it's a meta Dylan moment.
meta. See, we're getting meta here.
It's a cross textual reference. We're making our own rules up
Nico
here.
Hughes is great in this movie, though.
He is good. He is pretty
He's
damn
a
good.
very good child actor, yeah, and, like, he was creepy. I don't usually find kids creepy in movies, I don't that's one of my things in horror movies don't usually like, but I thought he was actually good in, an off topic, Pet Cemetery, but he's
Oh
also
yeah,
very,
he
good.
gets smoked by the 18 wheeler.
Yeah, yeah, he's also very good in this, though, like, when he has to be, creepy, he's very creepy in this, and yeah,
And luckily,
it's one of my pet peeves in horror movies, but I think it's actually works well, and he's a creepy kid in this.
yeah, and Pet Cemetery came out before this movie, so even then, people who see him might even know that he's been in something before, right? So that's kind of like a weird.
Right, exactly.
Uh, you almost would think Wes would want to cast someone who was unknown because obviously he didn't want to get. I don't know if Heather had a kid or going into that much of like how much of your real life can I use for this story, right?
You don't have a kid? Go and make one.
You can do it. Come on, come into it. Um,
We'll
but
put we'll put off the production and we'll wait until you have kids. But, like, I wouldn't see it past if, Wes wanted to cast her real husband. I wouldn't put it past, like, if she had a kid at the time, probably wanting to cast her real kid.
yeah, and I could see that being a tough one too. Because what if kids acting and most times kids are in movies
Yeah,
they annoy the hell out of me anyway. But
I could see her Heather, she probably wouldn't have wanted to, do that either.
yeah, apparently there's a different intro to the film originally too. There was an alternate opening where Heather and her husband and Dylan were all at Griffith Park, and it kind of opens up and is almost swallowing them. Like the ground opens up and it's like hell. And this is her nightmare.
Oh,
So
that's
I
awesome.
think it would have been similar maybe to like the scene that plays out later in the film where Dylan climbs the what do you want to call that? Like the
The freeway guardrail or the
no, when he's climbs all the way
Oh,
to the top,
no. Oh, the playground.
the
Yes.
playground. Yeah, he climbs all the way to the top and then he almost falls. I think it was something
Right.
like where it was going to be to that effect, where the family was out and shit started to get more and more weird, and then the Earth opens up and it's kind of like the entity of Freddy trying to take the family or the boy. But it was just
Mhm.
Wes said it was too much money and it was just too much, right? So we got what we got, and
That makes
I
sense.
kind of think it works too, because even if you notice, freaking um, Heather's wearing her original PJs from '84 in the opening scene of this movie. When you see her walking around on set, um, she's
Yep.
wearing that, which I thought was such a nice touch, attention to detail, you know. Um,
Oh,
but
see, it just shows how observant I am because that went right over my head, but that is so cool.
well, she's in it again at the end of the movie, right? But
Mhm.
that's when she goes to face him for the final time. That's when she's acknowledged, I accept the role, right,
Right.
of Nancy. And she says to John Saxon, "I love you too, Dad." It's not her dad, but
Yes.
she's saying
Yeah, so cool.
that's when Freddy emerges from the cocoon, and you get the Nosferatu claws on the wall shadow and him creeping through the house. Put that scene on at night by yourself. Crank it loud in a dark house, and tell me if you don't kind of get
Shit your
nervous,
pants.
because it's like everybody, when you're watching this, typically you're in a home, right? Unless you're in a theater, but apparently nobody saw us in theaters. It didn't do too well, so it's definitely one of those movies that scared me at home. But let's continue on with the story. After she wakes up, she has to go do an interview and leave, and that's where we meet the babysitter, Julie. Um, she was played by Tracy Middendorf, and it's apparently squared. Um, she was supposed to be like a pawn of Freddy in the original version of the movie as well. She was supposed to be kind of
Oh,
like
interesting.
doing the dirty work, and I think they changed that, but you can still see some scenes when listening to the commentary by Wes where he's like, and she just gives some weird looks here and there where we kind of make her like she's slightly suspicious, right? Because
Interesting.
when
Okay.
Heather's been getting these weird phone calls, um, she shows up at one point after going out, and Dylan's having an episode where the only person with him was the babysitter, but now his toy is cut open with the claw. Of course, the claw marks from Freddy, we all know, but the babysitter
Mhm.
was just like, I don't know, he was fine, and then all of a sudden he started screaming. So I guess there is like a seed of doubt planted in that the babysitter might be doing some
That she
stuff.
might be
Not like I would,
Oh, that's
I don't
very
know if she'd be possessed, but she was supposed to be like he was using her to get to something. But as we know later on, in this version, in the final version, um, I think this works much better because I think it would have made Freddy look, or this entity, if you're trying to make him scary again, why the hell does he even need a pawn in the first place if he's making these phone
right.
calls,
It's
right?
getting into part 2 territory almost where it's
Yeah.
an exorcism movie and
I And so after she's leaving because she's going to do this press conference, that's where we get to the Sam Rubin scene where she's in the studio, and that's where she gets the jump. Yeah, I wouldn't even call it jump scare. She gets the moment where Robert Englund shows up as Freddy and let's do lunch, and he's talking to her and he's hamming it up, and the
yeah.
kids are loving him, wanting his autograph and all these things, and Freddy's the wisecracker that he is from all the other sequels. So this is where we see Freddy proper for the first time in the movie. And I say proper in the sense of maybe what the audience is expecting to see him in the rest of the movie, right? We've only seen the new glove so far, which was in a dream.
Right.
And in this sequence, I thought it was so cool that he's talking and then Freddy comes out and he's, yeah, he is the Freddy's dead. He's Robert Englund. He's funny. He's silly. But
He's bouncing up and down like he does in Freddy's Dead too.
he's giving the kids high fives, like the guy who is a child
Yeah.
murderer, filthy child murderer. High five, kid. Yeah. Um, and then it kind of cuts to them at the New Line office with Rob Shea, and that scene's good too. But it's a lot of exposition about just how Wes Craven's been writing a new script, and he wants Heather to be the star of it, and she's worried because she has a kid now, and obviously her kid's going through things. And this is when it starts to really solidify. Okay, the weird phone calls maybe aren't just crazy fans, right? Even Robert Shea says that. He says, "You have fans." She says, "Oh, it's like kids love horror, Heather. You know, he's seeing the money
Yeah.
signs in his eyes. You know, Rob Shea." I like that scene. It's
Always the
funny.
producer.
Always the producer looking to find one more. We got one more Freddy idea. Just one more.
Yeah.
Just give me one more. But I like the scene with the limo driver as well, because he's so creepy and kind of seedy.
Oh yes,
and
so good.
it kind of reminds me like those scenes in between where it's like, you know, they're kind of taking some jabs at the system and like insider jokes, but he's like a creepy limo driver who's just talking to her as he's driving her to the studio, and he's kind of talking about all the most morbid parts of the previous Nightmare on Elm Street films. I loved when your girlfriend got cut open, the blood went everywhere, and she just rolls the window up.
You know she's probably had that happen to her in real life too, so it's kind of like,
Yeah, Wes even says that. He's like, I wrote this as kind of like you meet people throughout the years, and you have some people who identify with the evil aspects of it more in the darker moments.
right.
And that was kind of his answer to it, is just kind of, you're just kind of telling a story, and then some people really really focus on, I love when the guts and but I mean, it's an art, right? Some people like things for different reasons. There's
Yep, absolutely.
exploitative films, and I mean, certainly Wes is no stranger to that. I mean, he started his freaking career with Last House, right? And that's first
Hmm.
big movie to get him make his name, pretty much, was freaking Last House, and that's exploitive. Um, but
Oh yeah,
but
which I've only seen that movie the one time, and then obviously the remake too. But like,
it's a hard movie
which
to
I
watch.
think he produced. Did he produce the remake,
I'm not even sure. I'm
or
not even
did he
sure.
have anything to do with the remake? He probably did. I don't know. I want to speak out of turn, but like, yeah,
We could look it up.
it is a tough movie to watch, but it
Yeah,
is very good.
yeah. And that limo driver pretty much embodies some of the gross people out there, or the grossers, the chungos, if you will. But it's like, he also, I noticed this just the last time I watched it. He checks her out when he gets to New Line Cinema, and he's dropping her
I did
off.
catch that too when
He
she gets out of the.
and he's just staring at her as she's walking away, and the shot
Yeah,
kind of holds it. It was really like almost David Lynchian in a weird way, because it's like, you know, this guy's up to no goddamn good, but he's just a minor
right.
character, and then you never see him again. But he does have that kind of
Nope.
evil glint in his eye and his face. You just see his eyes at the beginning when he's talking to her from like the rear view mirror of the car, of the limo that he's driving her. And I just thought, man, this is such a creepy, off-settling little scene, but it was also great. And
Mhm.
when he does get to when they do get to go to do the interview, the guy, the PA, the production assistant, who grabs Heather, and he's like, Heather, we gotta go, you're gonna be late, run, 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 run. And they're getting her to go do the interview with Sam Rubin. That's actually, what's his name? Bodie Elfman, Danny Elfman's nephew. So there's like,
Oh no way, Jenna Elfman's husband,
yeah. So it's pretty, he's got a lot of little
Odie Elfman.
Bodie. He's not the body, he's the Bodie. Um,
Bodie.
but yeah, I thought there's like so many like nice little in references and all these things. The limo driver's a goddamn creep. Gonna go on record with that. Anybody who agrees with me, you know, just say limo driver equal creep in the
Creep.
comments, because he is fucking creepy, man. That, and it was like one
He
of those
is.
scenes that I don't think
The
gets
whole
talked about
scene
enough.
is just.
Um, yeah. Then it starts talking about Wes working on the script and the weird phone calls. And then you get the nice set deck scene when you actually see Dylan, the son, talk for the first time, and him and his mother are reading Hansel and Gretel. That scene's like kind of plays throughout the rest of the movie as
So
well,
good.
right? Even like the artwork
Yeah.
of like the one scene when the witch is getting pushed into the furnace, her socks are red and green stripes. So I'm like, you sly sons of bitches. Whoever did this, the set deck absolutely crushed it. Um, so I like that scene, and then like the Hansel and Gretel, which comes into play later at the end of the movie, which was a nice touch because sometimes you have scenes like this where it's there and then it meant nothing. It was just to serve some exposition or some bullshit, but you're actually setting up a nice moment where you see Heather is a caring mother who she knows things are going on with her son, and she's reading a bedtime story to him, but it's the one he wants to read, which is messed up. Is this meta, Wes? Wes is getting meta on her asses with this scene, right? The mother doesn't want him to watch it,
Always
to
meta.
read it, but he wants to. It's pretty much with kids and horror movies, right? So,
Yep, and that's so true.
and then you set up the Rex, the dinosaur, and then you also set up under the bed is where the evil man comes from, which he does in fact come from at the end of the film, which I thought was a really nice payoff to that, and also the Hansel and Gretel storyline when he leaves the trail of instead breadcrumbs, sleeping pills, so his mother can follow him into hell, I guess. By the end of the movie,
Yeah.
she has to play Nancy one last time, which I thought is. I mean, I don't think there's a much better way to end the movie. Maybe the execution could have been done differently, but
I know. I thought it was great.
yeah,
I agree. Like it.
her the transition. Let's get there too. Okay, I'm getting too excited about this. Um, kind of interesting note, kind of off topic, but it's about the movie as well. Whenever they're watching TV or they're driving from place to place, and it's kind of like a second unit team who's capturing some of this footage. It was all real life. All the earthquakes and shit that were going on. So Wes Craven got a
Oh
second
no
unit crew
way.
to get. He had like a stand-in for Heather, and a second unit crew would go and film some of the shit that was happening, the really bad earthquakes,
The actual shaking.
the actual shaking, and other scenes it was just reproduced on set in the house. Obviously, all that
Yeah.
stuff wasn't in the actual earthquakes, but the fact that it worked its way into reality, and they were able to go and utilize some of the bad things that were happening in the world right there to kind of reflect what was going on in the movie and vice versa. It really ties into the meta. Enjoy that for anyone
That's
who's waiting for
super
the word
cool.
again. Um, but yeah, it's like, I don't know. I thought it was really cool, interesting fact because I did not know that. And
No, that is really cool.
I think the only reference is a little off topic, but the second unit crew, the one scene when she's driving just before she meets Wes in the foreground, she's
Mhm.
kind of driving on a wavy uh, highway, and the camera is kind of like a really super wide shot, kind of up, almost like a bird's eye. But then you see like burned up cars or like a half of a building falling in the foreground. It doesn't show everything, but that's the only scene in this whole movie that reminded me of Nightmare 4. I was like, oh, it's kind of, or Nightmare 3 and 4. It's like the car
Oh,
the car
like
lot,
right. Yeah, like the kind of junkyard
the
car lot thing.
junkyard almost, and she's kind of driving towards it to the right of the screen, even though it's like in the foreground. It just, to me, that always, my brain always went there as a kid. I'm like, oh god, she's not going back to the junkyard, is she? But she was just going to see Wes, and then of course the next shot after you see some of the devastation of the earthquakes in that shot, it cuts to Wes's house. It's up on the top of a mountain, super nice. Not his real house, but he wanted it to be poshy just for the scene.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, might as well, right? He has a maid come over, or like an assistant come over, bring them coffee when Heather arrives. But I just thought that was a cool transition from like the wasteland of destruction to
To this huge.
Los Angeles bougie director's mansion. It's he always has like interesting. At least Craven always has things in his movies. Most of the time when they're not just fucking crazy, like Shocker. But I mean, I haven't seen that movie in years either. But he always has like
I
some
wasn't
social
big on it,
commentary.
but like even that. even a Wes Craven movie that I don't like Shocker, I can always appreciate the way it's made. He's such a good director at even movies I don't necessarily like of his. I can appreciate certain things about them or certain shots and certain transitions, and
Yeah.
he's great.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
He was
Legend.
great. R.I.P.
A legend. Um, what else can we talk about here? I liked how when she there's obviously references to the original in this one when she finds her son watching the original Nightmare on Elm Street film. That scene is also when her character meets Freddy for the first time in the Nightmare on Elm Street film, the original. So a nice other little meta moment, but it's her son watching it on the TV. But then the camera at the end of the scene
Mhm.
shows that the TV was unplugged the whole time. So pretty much it's a dream within a dream. Marriage. It's like Princess Bride on our asses here. It's like it's referencing stuff, but it's also doing it in a way that serves the narrative of the movie. So not to just for the sake of being meta, but um, I thought it was really well done. That scene's creepy as hell.
No, it was, yeah, like, it's so creepy him watching the original film, and yeah.
And all she has to do is like turn the TV off, and then it turns back on, and
Mhm.
and then later in the movie, this motif reappears where she's taken on the role, and it's playing again, but this time it's her talking to John Saxon, and
Right.
just tell me who it is. Oh, get him, baby. And she's like, it's Fred Krueger. And then he just, he says, yeah, okay. Kind of dismissing her in the original film. And then the TV turns off again. And we're like, shit, it's on now. Like this guy, this
Yes.
version of Freddy, he's fucking with you, but like in a much less humorous way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Completely opposite from, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah. And one of the, as this stuff goes on later in the movie, her son keeps having these episodes where he says there's a man after him, and so they go to take him, and he has some evaluations done. And at one scene, John Saxon, but this is before this happens, she goes and meets John Saxon, and that scene's really good too because that's when he climbs the playground and he's up. And later, after she asks, "What were you doing up there?" It's not like the kid's crazy or anything like this. He's just, oh, he was trying to reach God because he doesn't know,
Oh,
he doesn't
yeah.
understand what's happening to his dad. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's actually good, like kind of sad sequence, right?
That's what it would yeah, that loses his parent, yeah.
And Heather being super vulnerable in these sequences too, 'cause she doesn't know how to deal with it. And that's also tied into
Right.
apparently some of her real life as well. Like I think Wes was towing the line here about like, because she says when they're in that sequence, she has a line where she says to John Saxon, "It's in my family." She's had a family member who died in an institution, and apparently Heather Langenkamp has had somebody in her family who was at some point been in or out,
Oh my
or
god.
I don't know how deep that goes. And then
But yeah.
John Saxon says to her, "You just have a crazed fan after you." And then that's her line, "Whatever madness is in my family, I have that I've passed it on." She just hopes she hasn't passed it on to Dylan. That's Heather's worst fear. Um, And to me, that was great because then it cuts to him up at the top.
And the music in
And
that scene too, and, oh,
it's very like dramatic, but also I can see why people who liked the other Nightmare films might not like this one because it's not what we'd come to expect from a Nightmare on Elm Street film. But
definitely not.
I think it's I think it's where it should have gone in more heady tones as opposed to more commercial, cartoony
Broomsticks and
broomsticks. Yes, broomsticks and power gloves.
power gloves and
That's the wrong way.
Breckenmeyer.
Oh, yeah, Breckin Myers. Oh my god. They also bring back the phone gag. Dylan's involved in that sequence when the "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy." That happens again in this movie, but it's
Yep.
now him reaching out from he hasn't got enough power yet, or the genie isn't out of the bottle, so this evil entity that's trying to get out of is almost out of the movies, right? Because this has all happened, according to Wes. This is all happening because the Nightmare on Elm Street movies have stopped being made and those movies have kept the genie in the bottle for this amount of years. So it's kind of an interesting concept in that sense. Um,
Very cool. I always thought that was cool, and he does a really good job of when he's writing the script in the scene she comes in to visit him. He does seem genuinely like scared that he's the creator of all this and that what he's writing and
what have I done? Yeah.
yeah. But again, it doesn't seem egotistical or hammy. It's just very good.
Yeah, and he plays it pretty straight. He's not too
He
like
does. He
he's
does.
he's
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's not the best actor, obviously, but like it's just a very good scene still.
yeah, and the music in that scene as it's slowly when the slow realization comes in that she's like, well, I think the line she says to him is, "It's more than a movie now, isn't it, Wes?" And the score really starts to pick up. The movie's like really cranking
Right.
into third now because it's like it's shifting gears, and now the ante is up. Like he says, well, inevitably he's going to get you at your most. He's going to go after you in your most vulnerable moments. And she's like, and you didn't tell me this until now. He's like, what the fuck, dude? But like, yeah, then what does he say? Pretty much the Wes Craven scene. He goes, the Nightmare series has captured an ancient entity, like a genie in the bottle. The series became too familiar, too watered down, or was, you know, just ran its course. And that's when he says to her, he's going to try to get you when you're at your most vulnerable points. And Wes kind of goes on. I'm going to stay by my computer until he finishes the script. And when that time comes, Heather will have to make a choice if she's willing to play Nancy one last time. Um, yeah, that scene is haunting because you see at the end of this scene that we're watching play out with these characters that it goes to his computer room and the whole conversation they've just had verbatim is on his computer as if he's written it. At this point, you're like,
Right.
it almost feels
Which
like
is so cool.
you're watching a dream almost.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Um, um, sorry. We have another strong Heather scene in this movie, which I thought was great. She's reading books again. Remember in the original, she's doing the booby traps and improvised so and so devices,
Yep.
and Johnny Depp makes fun of her. Now this one, she's reading about schizophrenia and like family mental health and all these things, which is for 94 is kind of early to be talking about these things, but I mean, I guess it's a mature way in the sense of how else do you explain the phenomenon that's going on with her son? She doesn't want to believe it's Freddy,
No, absolutely.
but at the same time, this is a scene when Freddy has the jump scare and comes out of the closet when the coffee machine takes a fucking spill off the nightstand. That was extreme foreshadowing, eh? It's just she looks down, the
You're
coffee
right.
pot's broken on the ground. I was like, oh, dude. If you know Nightmare on Elm Street, if you know the lore of Nightmare on Elm Street, a broken coffee pot, that ain't good, Chief. Um, but that scene was so good because he says, "Miss me." So this entity, when he pops out, he says, "Miss me." It's like he knows what he's because it's not Fred Krueger, but he's just taking
Right.
the embodiment. But he
It's
knows,
so much more effective.
yeah, miss
Yeah.
me, and then he calls her Nancy just before she kicks him off, and that's when he slices her on the arm a little bit, and then the next scene, that's when they cut to her at the hospital again. Um,
Mhm.
all the callbacks to the originals in this movie, you know, at one point I'd say they're annoying, but they're always handled like so far, in my opinion, they've all been handled in like a nice way. Like we have her elbowing the doctor in the hall again, which was
Yep.
she actually
I did pick up on that. Yeah.
just like no running in the hallway, and that's where's your hall pass, in the original she elbows a nurse in the hallway to go see her son. In this movie she also says screw your pass. um Apparently she actually elbowed that lady for real. Like she actually when she swung her elbow, I think she misjudged it. I mean, she's not a stunt performer or like you know a wrestler or some shit. Yeah, you
Right.
can definitely mess those type of things up, but apparently she got wonked pretty hard. um
That's hilarious.
Lynn Shay is also in this movie yet again. She was in the original Nightmare, and now she's in this one again. Like She tries to get Dylan to take the pills to help him go to sleep. Remember, she's the teacher in 1984. She's the
And
one when they're reading in the classroom, and then she shows up here. Obviously, she's in other. She's showed up in so many horror films over the years. Obviously, Insidious.
for her Insidious, yeah, claim to fame.
Yeah, that was. And she's like her character's dead in those movies, and she keeps coming back. I'm back. It's so crazy. And I heard they're doing another one of those. I wonder if she'll be back for that one.
It just got delayed, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it got. I forget what took over its slot for next summer, but
Well, if they have more time, hopefully the story will be better. I heard the last one wasn't very good.
oh, the last one was dog shit. We talked about that in one of our recordings, I believe.
Yeah, what was it, The Red Door or something?
The Red Door, directed by Pat himself,
Yeesh.
Mr. Wilson.
I like Pat
Yeah.
Wilson, but I heard, yeah, I didn't hear good things about that one. I've yet to see it though. So, the doctor in this movie, also another reference, Dr. Hefner. It's a reference to someone on the MPAA who always gave Wes a hard time for his movies for the ratings. Richard Hefner, aka Dick. Because the ratings administrator always fucking with Wes, so he's like, okay, you want to be an ass to me? I'm gonna make this. I mean, the actress who plays the Dr. Hefner in this movie does a good job because she is coming from a good, like she is just she thinks
Her heart's in the right place.
Her heart's in the right place, but she's not doing anything untoward. It's just she doesn't believe that the man from the movies is coming after this boy. So, but I thought that was a nice little reference, and also you know, again, it feeds into the other aspect of the movie of is it what came first, the chicken or the egg, or does violence beget violence, or is it art imitating life, right? Because the kid wants to watch the movie throughout this film. Even the doctor is saying to Heather now, have you let your boy watch your films, these Freddy Krueger films, right? So it's no, I did not. I don't keep a copy of it on 4K. Okay, I don't have the 4K. I just hide a copy and I lock it up in the basement behind whatever a shelf or something. And then we have the babysitter death scene, Julie, which is obviously a callback to Tina's death sequence, the rotating room where she gets dragged up the wall from the OG film.
Yeah.
Another great moment. I thought that even like Freddy showing up behind her, and you really get a good look at him in the fedora and the new jacket and
he looks so creepy.
Ever play Skin the Cat? And he fucking, oh my god, he's dragging her, and there's like, this is once again Scary Freddy.
And see, he's got the one-liner, but it's like part 3. It's like the best Nightmare movie where he's saying these one-liners, but he's still frightening. He's not just a comic book a parody of himself. Like,
he's not busting out the one-liner before you escape and get away. Or he's doing it as he just murdered somebody you love. So, and the younger nurse with the needle who's trying to give Dylan the sedation in that scene, she, before he goes to bed and murders the babysitter, is Wes Craven's daughter, Jessica Craven. So he's putting a lot of people, even his own kid. But I mean, it's just a small role, right? So a nice little. And then we get the Screw Your Past moment, of course. Anybody would know that from the original,
right?
And then the highway sequence. What are your thoughts on the highway sequence?
Oh, so good.
Oh man, a kid almost getting run over by an 18-wheeler. That's
like it's so terrifying.
It is. It's and him coming out of the clouds.
Yeah.
Very
throwback to yeah.
It reminded me a lot of Dream Warriors when he's puppeteering
Dream Warriors with the puppet. Yeah, it's just so creepy and
overly large, and Freddy coming out from the clouds was freaking creepy. And apparently there's going to be like a Freddy roadster driving down the road. I'm glad they didn't go for that. I'm really
I
glad they
would have
didn't
been
do that.
cool, but I mean, I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah.
It would have been it would have been cool looking, but it would have been too much like the sequels. I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah, me too. Budget might have
Like,
saved this film.
Groundskeeper Willie in the, Nightmare on Elm Street, Simpsons episode turning into the tractor.
Oh my god, yeah.
If that's like sounds like that,
Pretty
with
much.
bagpipes and everything.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Will I? Then yeah, my
Ooh.
one of the other favorite sequences in the film, other than like the talk show sequence, because that scene is just so good. Everything, I love the opening of this movie. It has a really good pace where it's like you're seeing the inside lives of what it's like to be an actor, actress. And then this scene when she goes home and finds her son, and then we have the final transformation that's leading up to the final battle of the movie. John Saxon shows up, and again, the sequence from the 84 film plays where she talks to Lieutenant Thompson, John Saxon, in that movie, and he doesn't believe her. Now, this time she's talking, and he doesn't know what she's talking about. Now, John Saxon isn't acting like the John Saxon from earlier in the film. Now he's acting like Lieutenant Thompson again. She's saying,
Like her fictional dad.
yeah, he's acting like her fictional dad. And she's saying about Fred, and he goes, Freddy who? And she goes, Fred Krueger. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Nancy. And in this world, this was Heather and John Saxon, or so she thought. And so now Freddy starts to come out of his cocoon in the bedroom, in Dylan's bed, which ties
Very cool.
into
Yeah.
what he was saying to his mother and babysitter earlier, right? There's a man who wants to come up from my bed, and Rex, the dinosaur, was protecting him. And when Heather finally admits all this, and she goes, "Yeah, I love you too, Daddy," he says, "Take care of yourself, Nancy." And she kind of acknowledges what she's supposed to be doing, right? She goes, "Okay, I have to play this part one more time. We know the rules now. I love you too, Daddy." And then the music fucking kicks in, and Freddy finally comes out of the bed, and he's lurking in the house now. And we cue her finding the sleeping pills, breadcrumbs. She goes into the underworld, which is a pretty cool, it almost feels like the minecart levels from Donkey Kong Country or something. She's just fucking
So cool.
sliding and going down this thing. Like as a kid, it felt like a roller coaster sequence, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's Heather becoming Nancy, essentially. The house that she lives in also becomes the original Nightmare on Elm Street house. So when the camera flips back around, when they're outside talking at her her dad's car now, I guess, right? It is her dad now. She's accepting the role.
Mm.
When she goes to John Saxon's car, now he's got the police siren on the top of the car. And he drives away, and she's back in her 84 pajamas from the original. And when the camera flips around, we finally get hit with that OG score again, the Nightmare score. And it's the house from the original. And I'm like, I think they wanted to do something with that in the sense of maybe having it be the original house, but I think that would have been too off-putting. Do you know what I mean? Because we've already
I think so too.
They've done a good job throughout the rest of the film of setting up what their house is, like the whole layout of it, and we could kind of know geographically, okay, Dylan's bedroom's over there, her bedroom's up here, there's living room, kitchen, etc. So we have enough time to for her to get in and set up, and then whatever, she ends up going into his realm anyway, right? So I don't think it would have mattered too much other than just like a dopamine drip of nostalgia. But yeah, when they get down there and they finally face off again too, man, pick a pet for the Rugrat bitch, I thought was a cool Freddy line. Like, that's dark.
Yes, absolutely.
And we finally get to hear Heather swear back at him. She tells him, fuck you. And then she punches him. I was like,
fuck you.
And she cranks him too. I was like, dude, yes. We don't need all
the whole ending sequence is so good. That whole sequence at the end is just amazing.
Yeah, I've heard some people who didn't like it.
So well done.
I've heard some people did like it.
Really? Well, they're out there, I guess, but
yeah. I personally like it. I mean, maybe the set wasn't as
Yeah,
big as it
I
could
did.
have been, but it's fucking budget, you know? Everything worked, like the matte
Yeah,
paintings to make it look
I thought
huge.
the flames and everything, like the grates, and it was creepy as shit.
Yeah, it was really creepy. And then, of course, we have the mud stairs when she's going to save Dylan, when he's trapped in the little
Yeah.
furnace, and the whole Hansel and Gretel coming full circle. She leaves the trail of breadcrumbs, or he leaves a trail of breadcrumbs, aka sleeping pills, so his mom can follow him into the dream world. Nancy throws him, burns Freddy once again. I don't know what. Maybe they could have done something more interesting with his demise, because personally, I thought,
It is very quick, but I still loved it.
yeah, him burning again, I was like, guys, couldn't we do something else with this? But it is what it is. And then you have the ending of the ending of the ending, right? You have the
Mhm.
she's reading, they escape this and they're back at their house, and that's when she starts reading the script again. Behind the lights, faces watch from the darkness, ready to laugh or scream in terror. And that's like the last line of the film. And that's the last line in the script as she's reading it. And the camera slowly dollies out backwards out of the room. And we're
As the
left in
sick music starts playing.
as the sick music starts playing again. And then you hit with credits. And I was like, this is the second I was done watching this movie the first time as a kid. I remember I'm like, I have to watch this again because I know I don't understand what's going on here.
Right.
Yeah, the I really freaking enjoy this movie though. Like
It's so good, and yeah,
it does have
it's
moments
great.
of humor. It does have its moments where it's like it adds some surrealness to
But
the reality that I really
they're
like.
so like, the humor in it, yeah, are just like your any horror movie, like, that has just humor thrown into it, and I think the humor in this movie, it's there, but it's not in your face, and it's not. I
Yeah,
don't know, it's so good.
yeah, like when she's talking on the phone and then there's clowns walking behind her juggling past off camera when she's getting out of the uh, talk show. I was like, this is so weird. Like, did they
Mhm.
just watch like a David Lynch movie or something? I know what's Rachel Talalay from Freddy's Dead. She was watching a lot of Twin Peaks when she said she did some of the wonky shit for Freddy's Dead, especially like the old town. Remember when they're driving around and like the old man, he's just in like a everybody's like, there's no kids here, and we're at the town carnival, and that was super much inspired by Twin Peaks, and like some seat like the sequence with the clowns juggling in this one was really reminding me of that. And that's a subtle reference, say R.P. David Lynch as well, but um,
Yeah.
there was that scene was like it's kind of off putting as well because you're like, okay, why the fuck is this happening in the background? But your eyes almost can't leave it. And
Mhm.
then you have the creepy limo driver, and then you have the weird phone call. It's just like a lot to digest upon the first viewing. But once
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know, man. There's a lot going on here, but I think there's a lot of commentary, and it's one of the better. I'd say it has to be in my top three favorite nightmare films. Obviously, I oscillate them, depending on my mood. If I just want to.
No, like, I agree, like, and we didn't talk about, Chase's death.
That is very true. That's like one of the newer,
His death
almost like original
his
kills
death
in this one.
Yeah, and it like, that's it rewatching it, it was just like I was like, "Holy shit, I forgot how, like, fucked up this is," and where she has to go and identify the body and everything, and
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because he's listening to REM, and then the Freddy glove comes out because he's driving. Because he's a
and
special
it's
effects
amazing.
guy
It's
and he's
such a
driving.
throwback to the original
Yeah,
or to the originals. It's just it's so good, like, that whole sequence is just amazing.
and yeah, even the following sequence, which I mean, we'd be remiss without talking about that too. When you get to see Freddy trying to take the boy down, because they go to the funeral scene, because Heather's husband
Right,
just
right.
just just died. Chase got killed. He fell asleep at the wheel. Freddy got him.
Yeah.
And now we're cutting to this, and Freddy shows up trying to take Dylan, because apparently, if you fall into a grave, it just goes into all the way down to hell. That was like the first time we see the tunnels that lead down and shit, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
it was kind of a creepy scene, but also you got a ton of cameos. Like you had Nick Corey, aka Jesus Garcia, Rod from the
Oh,
original. Yeah,
Tuesday.
Tuesday Nights in the background. Of course, you
Yeah.
have Robert Englund, Rob Shea, a couple other people there. I think that's the scene that they were gonna have Johnny Depp in, but by this time in '94, Wes was too, I guess, shy or nervous about because Johnny was starting to blow up, right?
With
And
his Tim Burton. But yeah, I think he mentioned that
he would
he
have
would
done
have
it.
done
Yeah,
it.
yeah. He said if you would have asked me, I would have done it. I'm like, damn it, Wes.
Oh, you mentioned that. Yeah, you mentioned that
He's
that
like,
day
I
in
would
a
have done it.
previous recording.
I would have done it, but it was just the timing, and he didn't ask me.
That
Um,
would have been cool. That would have been really cool.
I have a question I want to ask you about, just in general. Wes
Sure.
Craven was raised in a household without film. It was a fundamentalist Baptist house. Imagine what Wes Craven would have been like with normal parents, with a household where he can actually watch movies. I wonder if the movies would have been more messed up
That's
or more normal.
that's a good question.
Because it's like, you have to wonder, right? Because I don't think he ever, I've read his biography before, and he had mentioned that horror kind of chose him. He wanted to make dramas,
Porn.
essentially. Yeah.
No.
He wanted to make porn. Something even worse. Come on, give me some grindhouse.
Oh, but that's true. It's funny. It's so funny because I don't know if I've mentioned this in a previous recording, but like I remember being at my nana's, my grandmother's place one time, and she had a VHS of what is it, Playing by Heart?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that the movie he directed?
Yeah.
And I just remember reading that and seeing directed by Wes Craven, and I did a double take. I'm like, wait, what?
What? A
What?
minute. Is this the same Wes Craven? I don't think there's that many
Like, Wes
Wes's out there.
Craven? There's Meryl Streep's on the cover of this.
I know.
What?
He finally got to do what he wanted to do. But
Which is very cool, but
just not what he'll
yeah,
be, obviously.
that is a good question. Like, would he have? I yeah, it's interesting. I think he would have still done horror,
Yeah.
but maybe it wouldn't have been his like obviously his bread and butter.
Yeah, he was a very intellectual person, right?
Mhm.
He was like a professor at a university or some
He's
shit.
even
He's
what
really
is
into
it?
literature and all this stuff. So everything he does always, like, he references stuff, and he loves to put some of, literary things that he enjoys into movies. So I always wonder what it would have been like if he was able to see more movies, because he only started to see them when he went to school. When he went to school, sorry.
No, that is interesting because I think you're right. Maybe he would have been more a series director who maybe got into horror and did horror as a side. Like I don't know because it's kind of like Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele kind of comedy chose Jordan Peele,
True. And now isn't he doing a
and,
new
and
version
now
of
he's a
People Under the Stairs?
huge. Oh, is he? I didn't know that, but I'm just like I did. He's like he was. You wouldn't have thought when Key and Peele was on that here's a future horror auteur, right? Like,
Very true. Very true.
and so like, and I know Wes Craven originally Deadly Friend. He didn't want to make that a horror movie. He wanted it to be a different movie altogether, and then the studio took over and made him basically turned it into a horror movie.
That's true. It's very true.
So that's an interesting question you ask.
I'm just interested. I thought he was out of all, like, the horror directors. Obviously, we have some of our faves. One of whom is going to be the subject of our next um, conversation here in Film Club. But we'll get to that when we get there. Little hint, hint. Perhaps
Mhm.
some John Carpenter. Um, Trying to look if I have any other notes or anything else we should cover before we shut this operation down. Um, yeah, on one of the documentaries, I guess I saw So Bob Shea also had a chuckle about Scream taking a shot at all the Nightmare sequels, which we were talking about Scream earlier, which is pretty funny. Because
Which is funny because now, like, how many Screams have there been? There's the seventh one's coming out or the eighth one's coming out now, and
it's true.
it's kind of
And
funny.
they're bringing back characters. Like we said, Matthew Lillard's back. What is he going to have, a Band-Aid on his head? Stu, it hurts. I'm feeling a little woozy here when he's losing blood.
I get told I look like him all the time. I get told
Matthew
I look
Lillard?
like him. Yeah, which I don't know if it's a necessarily an insult. I don't like it, but
I don't like it. He's not a bad looking fella. I don't know.
yeah, no.
And he
but
seems to be
I don't know,
home.
he's just he is. I'm not bad mouthing Matthew Lillard. He's a good actor and he seems like a really cool dude in real life. So I don't mean to sound like that. Like, but yeah, I've been told I look like him.
Hey, well, I'll have to print off an 8x10 and get you to sign it the next time I'm in town. That's hilarious, though, that Wes...
man. No way, man.
I think it's hilarious, too, that we were talking about Scream earlier. Now we're talking about how Scream used to parody all these things, and now they're at the same amount as, like, Wes Craven was with...
A parody of it, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But the fact that New Line... Wes is like, okay, we're going to put this line in. Yeah, the first Nightmare was great. The rest sucked. Drew Barrymore says this. It's like, got him. But at least Rob Shea has a chuckle about it. And there's one final thing I'd like to say. Wes Craven was talking about his general art in an interview. I can't remember where from. It was on one of the behind the scenes extra features. I think it's on the disc itself, but it says Craven said something like, there are things that aren't on the grid of rationality. Every civilization has its own grid of what is proper behavior and what is civilized. And he's just hoping that some of his work can capture some of these moments, even if they're darker. And I think he always handled, the ludicrosity, if you could say such a word, if it is such a word, but I'll say it, ludicrosity of some of these movies that it asks us to go on these crazy rides with. But he always handles it with a care that he takes it seriously, and he's not laughing at the audience. Like, he's not, I don't believe that his films try to be cynical in a sense of their darkness and depravity. It's always coming from the audience is keeping up with his films, and there is like a overall good theme for finding the darkness in the light, if you will.
Oh yeah, that's really good, and it's a good way of putting it. And finishing this being our last Nightmare one, it's just it was cool rewatching them all again and talking about them with you. And and R.I.P. Wes. And
yeah, all the people who worked on this whole franchise, the good and the bad,
and the ugly.
Yeah, oh god.
But I feel like this one, it was great of Wes to do this, and it's. I didn't read that. I didn't read too much. I like I've said in other recordings, I leave you to do the research and everything, so that I'm actually surprised at some of the things that you tell as we record. So that is shocking. If I did read it, I put it out of my memory bank that it wasn't a financial success, which is too bad, because this was the best Nightmare movie. I almost said Friday movie. This was the best Nightmare movie since part 3, and it's a shame that it didn't do well at the box office, because after the sequels that followed 3, this one really brought the love of it back for me anyway. And yeah,
absolutely, sir. I'm on board with you. I'm liking. I really like the. I don't want to say, because it just sounds so. Hey guys, let me put my suspenders. Let me tighten my suspenders up. But it's a more mature horror film. It doesn't have a huge body count, but it is like suspenseful, and it is scary, and it at points is gross. But it's not always have to be every scene Freddy. And I think that's kind of he really did a nice job of commenting on what the series had become. And also,
Right.
I don't even know if they would have continued on like this if it would have been, if it would have gotten bad again, because how do you manage that, right? You've just defeated it by the end of the movie. How do you. Is Rennie Harlan going to come back and there's going to be a dog that pisses fire and the bed just explodes and Freddy's back? You know what I mean? Like, but I really like the commentary of like, even the kids wearing, it sounds so bizarre, but like the kids in the audience at the talk show, I think it's one of my favorite points of the movie because it's what we do as like fans of horror, right? You're embracing a symbol of evil in a way that you're in control of.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah,
it
that's a
makes,
good, yeah, it's great.
it doesn't make us horror fans or people who enjoy, you know, gross movies, scary movies, horror films, bad people. It's just, it's a way, it's like a roller coaster,
Mhm.
right? We're in control, but we're not. And,
No,
uh,
yeah.
and the fandom of Freddy definitely took control of the commercial side, the art side versus industry in the sense of how the series went. And maybe the fact that this movie didn't do so well was showing that the audience maybe wasn't ready for this yet. Or, but as Scream would show,
Until Scream, I guess, yeah.
yeah. But then Scream was more of a teenager film. If you look at the way it's marketed, you have all these
True.
younger actors, and they're all playing teenagers, and even they know the rules of these movies. Where this one was more, New Nightmare is more of an adult film, right? But
Absolutely.
I don't know, man. Anything else to say about New Nightmare?
Uh, no, no, not, I will say this, this is not New Nightmare, related, but it is Freddy related. You reminded me when you were talking about all the fandom and everything, but I remember a few years ago, it's definitely in the last 5 years, but, Adidas came out with, Nightmare on Elm Street sneakers, and I wanted to buy them so bad,
Oh, God. That would be nice.
but
I want a pair. I haven't even seen them, and I'd want a pair.
they're super cool, and I looked them up, and they're ridiculous now. The price, they were expensive to begin with, but now they're just, it's ridiculous, but
Oh, yeah. That
yeah.
was probably just one time
Uh,
printing. Yeah. Shit.
it was, yeah. But yeah, that's, off topic, but, I've got nothing more to say about New Nightmare other than it's great. It's, my 3rd, I you said the top 5. I think it's my 3rd favorite in the series behind 3 and 1. Um, yeah, it's great, and I love it.
Likewise, it's been a riveting conversation. I enjoyed, and it's, we'll end it with one more little fact too. It was also, go on record, it's Robert Englund's favorite Nightmare film. So
There you go. I can't,
the man,
that
the myth himself,
doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
'cause he's a intellectual as well, right? He gets into his roles. He knows what the
Mhm.
layers, like an onion. It's got many layers to it. Um, but yeah, this movie is fantastic. You go back every time, watch this movie, and you can find little Easter eggs and little things in it that are just great. And it's also a good story in and of itself. So with that being said, um, this is Film Club signing off once again. We're going to be returning soon with covering some new movies. We're not going to do another series just yet, but we are going to start with a few single films and kind of
It'll be
gauge.
cool to do that. It'll be cool once we've, now that this one's the finality of the doing the Nightmare movies, now it's cool that we'll be getting into some single by themselves horror movies. Horror movies.
Or, yeah, like the other type of films he could have got into if he was in a different household. Um, it's true. It's very true. Because, yeah, not going to lie, even after, my love for the series, you do so many of them, and it's nice for a change. And,
Mhm.
some people in the comments go, "Where's Freddy vs. Jason?" Well, guess what? I don't want to talk about it right now. Or the remake. Maybe we'll do it one day.
Yes.
If there's people out there who want it that bad, you can, pop off in the comment section and say, why didn't you do this? But um it's kind of just going from our interest right now, and to me, this is New Nightmares where the series ended, and
Me too.
Freddy vs. Jason just kind of was a one-off, not really canon. I don't know what the actual canon is considered anymore. I don't keep up on that entirely, but it is kind of like a one-shot story. And to me, this is the end of the Freddy Krueger saga, especially because Wes coming back. So if there anyone disagrees, you
Absolutely.
can absolutely have your opinion, but that's just how I feel, and that's where we're going. So
That's just like that's just like your opinion, man.
the dude abides. Anyways, until next time, folks, we're going to be coming back really soon with another titillating episode. And yeah, John
Can't
Carpenter.
wait.
Not going to say anything else. All right, signing out, folks. Brad here. John, we'll see you later, man.
Goodbye.
Peace.